Cool. Will you have to do it again?
Yes, please. No, it's alright.
Oh, okay.
We're on
Try
this.
not to.
Well, welcome, ladies. Lovely to be here with you all. And here it's Women's Day, so I'm here with three dynamic ladies. And I'd love to start with yourself, Andrea. In terms of looking into Women's Day and you're talking about yourself as a leader, what is one thing that you intentionally give to either your organization, teams, or just within the industry that really strengthens you as a leader?
Gosh, one thing. I'm going to pick on the word resilience. I think resilience, particularly to women and underrepresented groups, I think is really important. My career was not a straight line, and I think very few careers are. But I think what I see in women particularly is when you have a setback, you internalise it very quickly and think that it's your personal inadequacy, and it's not. And so I think what we need to do as leaders is to help people realise that what is pressure is structural and not personal. And what do I mean by that? They're talking, the problem is the situation. It's me as a chief executive, CFO, whatever, and not me as Andrea. There's market shifts, strategies evolve, but what's so important for women particularly, I think, is to stay in the room, to keep going. There are no prizes for quitting. And people sometimes mistake volume for resilience. It's not. It's about holding ground. And I think as leaders, we need to role model that. People have often said to me, "Oh, you're very calm." And I think as a board and as leaders, we need to role model that behaviour where people can be open about challenges. You can explore them together, and then you can solve them and just keep on going. Why do I think that's important? I think, and why do I gain from it? We get better teams. The best teams are the diverse teams, and there's diversity of gender, there's diversity of age, there's diversity of background. And today is about Women's Day, and I obviously feel very strongly about that, but I feel more strongly about having a diverse team with everyone can contribute. And that makes my job as a leader better. It makes the businesses I work with better and the industry better if we can keep that diversity, and it makes it more fun.
I love that. Abi, I'd love to ask you the same question.
Absolutely. My answer is going to be a lot less polished, but let's go. Just give me a moment to contain my thoughts there. I think something that means quite a lot in terms of what I bring to the table is really working with intention. Earlier in my career, it was very easy to feel swayed perhaps by other people's agendas and by the urgent things, or even the important things that other people around me needed. And as I matured and got more experience along the way, what I realised that would help me and the teams of people that I was leading is actually being really clear on what that team was there to do and how we could support the business by understanding the objective, but also execute the things that we knew are really important to help get things done. And I think when you have that sense of really being true to your own agenda, you're able to deliver more effectively because you're not simply getting pulled from pillar to post by different business demands. You can remain strategic and be able to lead your teams. And I liked what you said about resilience, actually, because I often think in the context of what are the behaviours I want to pass on to my daughter, and definitely one of the key characteristics is resilience. So to give you an example, we were hiking up a mountain last week, and she's only 12. And it was a very steep mountain and she was not very happy. And I started to be quite firm. I was like, okay, have a drink, take some sugar, then we walk again. And there were some athletes, there were some Argentinian hockey players who were climbing up the same mountain with us, all women. And they said, "What's her name?" And I said, "Her name is Catherine." And they could see that she was struggling, and they lifted her up. So they started saying, "Come on, Catherine, you can do it." And she literally had this cheering squad of ladies behind her, encouraging her and giving her the energy that she needed to keep going and get to the top, which she did. And I think sometimes for me at work, that's something which women can give to each other, is really to show someone that you see them, that the work that they're doing matters, that the contribution is valued, and to really lift them up in that way.
And I
Great
think,
story.
Thank you.
And she made it to the top as well.
She made it to the top. She was not happy, but she did it.
She's a teenager.
Yeah, well, I felt she was at that moment. I can tell you.
Oh, good on her. That's fantastic. Persevering
Yeah.
and doing it. And I love that the women cheering other women on and how powerful that can be, you know, no matter your age,
I
you
think it
know,
made all the
work.
difference.
Yeah.
Because she also realised she was at the point where she couldn't go down or up. Oh, sorry.
no, I'll pass you the mic.
She was at the point where she had to keep going up. She couldn't turn back. And I think sometimes in our careers we feel that as well.
Yeah.
So it was a good moment to have a cheerleading squad behind her.
Have you ever had that moment where you feel like you do want to give up work
Yeah.
specifically?
I've sat in a car park and wept with a thing, thinking I just can't do this. And then you think, well, you're in the car park now, you really better get out and do it. and then you keep going. Yeah, you keep going. I'm here to tell the tale.
And I love your point about, I think both of you aligned when you're talking about uplifting women. Both of you aligned when you're talking about uplifting women, but also this idea of this critical voice that's inside of you that can, you know, be a lot harsher than a lot of people would be internally. So I think it's that idea of maybe when you do have this voice inside that's saying it's a personal thing, I failed because it's because of myself and not for some other, you know, factors as well. It's this idea of maybe you could have other people around you that are supporting you and uplifting you. So I love that story about your daughter. Sav, I'd love to ask you the same question.
Let me take a minute as well. It's
Yeah.
quite difficult to sometimes pinpoint one thing. Yes, I think that time, presence and respect, which might sound like three things, for me are almost hand in hand tied together. Being available, being present, being on the ground with teams means that you're there, you're available for them. In my line of work, in project management especially, we have a lot of complexities. Time is never on your side. You're dealing with so many multiple things, whether it's stakeholders, clients, timelines, and it can be very, very intense. And it's almost not being there just to constantly answer questions, but provide that validation and support where it's needed, and actually empowering people to make those decisions themselves with a little bit of a guidance, and that you are there. You know, it's nice to learn from each other. I learn all the time, no matter who it is, by speaking with people, being there, being present, being in the room. I'm constantly every day, hearing different thoughts and opinions and trains of thought that I might not necessarily have thought myself. And at the same time offering my opinion, not giving them the answers, but allowing them that thought process that they need to go through to also learn to lead themselves as well. So I think that's really important. And at the same time, the respect that you do have to offer others. You'd mentioned already that everybody has a different background. No two people will have the same experiences, way of approaching things. There's so many individual things that people can bring to the table. And when you offer an amount of respect, you learn from those experiences that others have by offering that ear and taking on board, how they approach things, how they do things differently, personal experiences that you might never know, or
Absolutely.
impact generally at work. It ultimately can have a knock-on impact. So for me, those are key things that I try to give to my teams all the time, is time, being present and respecting them, their opinions and the knowledge that they bring to the team to help us actually ultimately all gain success together. And 100% the championing other women is so important, because there are times, I think, in my career where I've either been the only female on a team or in a team, and you automatically feel almost very judged, and that the expectations are different for you. And I genuinely feel a kind of sense of comfort when you've got another female in a team, in the room, championing you, you know, there to turn to for advice. It can be a very, very, very powerful thing. So I would 100% second the women championing other women.
I love that, and it just also shows me how much, one, you trust your team, but also you need to trust yourself as well as a leader. And I'd love to know from you, Sav, you know, when was there a moment where you really decided, you know, I trust myself fully here as a leader?
That's an interesting question. I don't know if I'll ever really fully trust myself, but I think that's part of it, is having the confidence to know instinctively that taking a risk or making a decision is okay, and knowing in yourself that you've got within you a reason for making those decisions and having that confidence. And I think for me, that's quite early on in my career, a moment that I can think of where I didn't need to wait for somebody to validate that the decision was right. I almost took the risk on my own back, made it, and it was the right choice. So I listened to my, you know, inner kind of sense of that and took my experience, and it paid off, and it ultimately made me realize you don't necessarily need to be given the opportunity to lead. You can claim it and take that on yourself as well and step out of your comfort zone. So I think for me that type of moment is when you kind of question your confidence and ability in yourself.
And I'd love to hear from one of you ladies. Anything you'd add to that?
Thank you. Do you want to go?
You go first.
When did I trust myself as a leader? A little bit of anecdote to set the question. I was CEO of a business. I'd lost a supplier, went under, that was going to give me 40% of my stock. I'd got 2 months of stock and then nothing to sell. And I had to stand up in front of all of my workforce, 200 people, on whose livelihood I was in control of, really. And I didn't have a plan. And I'm a control freak. I don't like not having a plan, but I didn't have a plan. And so I thought, what can I do? And the only thing I could do was to just be honest and tell them the situation, and tell them that I would work day and night to work out a plan, and that I would be honest with them as we went forward. And, you know, I was standing on that stage alone with a sort of like, blimey, I really don't know what to do here. What really struck me though is my honesty, and it was really difficult, and I felt quite emotional about it. But after the presentation, people came to me and said, thank you for being honest. We will do everything we can to help you. And it still moves me a little bit now, actually. And it made me think, actually, honesty in leadership is a really important thing. You know, people, you can spin things to some degree, but everybody really knows the truth. And if you are honest, then people trust you. And I think honesty as a leader, and that really gave me a lesson there that, you know, we're all in, you know, I may be the leader, but it's a team together. It's for me to set the direction. But, you know, if you bring people along with you with honesty, it can be really powerful.
Wow. What was the question again?
I just would love to know, was there moments or key moments within your career where you realized, hey, I trust my voice, I trust myself here as a leader?
Yeah, I'm sorry. That was the question you said us. That's interesting. I hadn't sort of thought about that. I suppose to some extent what I'm trying to do just for me in this is actually almost reflect, not like, hi, here am I on a, but what is my observation of the people that I really have valued through time. And I think leadership is difficult. Leadership is honest and it's raw, and it means making tough decisions sometimes. It means not being the popular person in the room when you're having to do things that are difficult for good reasons. And I think where I feel comfortable always trusting myself is around intent, because if I know that my intent fundamentally is to be fair to people, to support them even when times are difficult, even when we're making difficult decisions, then I believe with that there is an understanding that you are actually trying to do right by people, no matter what the journey is that you're on. And that's really important for me, because I think the leaders who I've trusted most in my life and my career have been people who have been honest, who have been straight, and who have sometimes, on occasion, been able to show even maybe a little bit of vulnerability as part of their own journey. Because it's very easy sometimes to think that maybe leaders aren't human, that they are superhuman, but actually some of the best leaders I've ever worked with, and I've worked with CEOs through my whole career, and they are people who've been able to show those occasional moments of vulnerability and brutal honesty about the fact that they're also living out their own leadership journey. So I think trusting myself really is down to authenticity, and I hope and want that from my people in my team as well.
Love that. Really some powerful answers.
Thank you. Would you like to build on that?
Much more to say.
I'll do an anecdote from this morning. So we've talked about being the only woman in the room. I was sitting in a room this morning chairing another board that I lead, and I looked around the table and I was the only woman again. 2026. I thought, really, people? And then I thought, okay, I'm here because I'm good at what I do. Let's not reflect on the fact that I'm a minority, because I think we're all often find ourselves in minorities. You know, it used to be when at the start of my career, invariably I was the only woman in the room. You know, now I find myself towards the end of my career as the oldest person in the room. So I would encourage us not to focus on the fact that we are a minority, but that we are, whether it's age or gender or ethnicity or whatever, but that we are there because people want us and we've got something to contribute and we have a valuable seat at the table. And, you know, if we didn't, we wouldn't be there. So, you know, focus on that rather than the fact we're a minority. But, you know, it was a live thing this morning. I thought, I'm going to a Women's Day presentation in a couple of hours. And, you know, really. So.
The irony of
Yes,
that
yeah.
in 2026.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's amazing to hear these kind of stories. I mean, unfortunate to hear on that side, but also it just puts in perspective how much still needs to be done. But also hearing some of your stories as well, how far you have come within your own careers, and just seeing that this women not being afraid to take up this space and all of your anecdotes along the way. It's really inspiring for me to hear as well, and I'm sure to everyone else as well. So I appreciate that, ladies.
Could I say something? Just you
Yeah.
sparked an idea. In terms of helping women to be more powerful at work, I think one of the things I'm a big believer in is actually gravitas, being able to walk into a room and clearly state, why are we here? What are we trying to achieve? To then, as you said, chair that meeting and be able to take people through a clear agenda and then to summarize and wrap up at the end. Because I think having that structure gives people a lot of confidence in your leadership abilities. Because they appreciate the guidance and can really feel the impact of someone who is comfortable taking control, but in a constructive way.
Absolutely.
And you said it earlier about taking the leadership role upon yourself. I mean, a coaching advice that I often give to people is act at the next level. You know, don't wait to be asked. And you said it perfectly earlier.
Absolutely. I had a comment to make actually on the back of yours around being the only woman, but actually being there because you have something to add and give. And I actually think any female in that position should feel proud when they're sat at a table. And there was an incident that during my career when I was quite junior, really strong, fantastic role model of a leader, was asked to join a meeting just because she was female. And I remember her refusing and saying, I only want to be invited if I've got something to say and add. I don't want to be invited for the fact that I'm just a female. And I thought that was really powerful, that actually being invited to be at the table should mean you have a voice. You're not just a presence to be a woman and just sit, or, you know, You should be there to share expertise or knowledge or bring something to that conversation. So absolutely, to your point, Andrea, that when you are sat at a table, it's a very proud moment when you can bring something and add something to meetings or conversations. It's absolutely an interesting thought.
Yeah. Anyone else? Any other points to add on to that?
I mean, I guess, just thinking for a sec, what do you guys think the role of men in International Women's Day is? Because it's quite hard to be a man nowadays, let's be honest.
Yeah.
You're not quite sure what the line is, where to cross
I've
the
got
line.
a 20-year-old son who is a thoughtful guy, and I see him going through those challenges on his personal life, on his, as he develops through university, and how he interacts with women, and I think it is hard. I was at InvestCorp, I was head of diversity for the London office because I was the only female MD in London. And then I'd done my stint, and I suggested putting in place a young man who had a wife, they had dual careers, 2 young kids, and he was so much better at it than me because he understood it from the family perspective. By the time I was doing it, my child was older. I wasn't juggling all those responsibilities. He was in there at the sharp end. He was credible with his peers, and he moved on the agenda from the dual career perspective really powerfully. And so I think there is a role that this shouldn't be. I mean, it's good to have women here, obviously, but I think we need to bring the men along the journey as well, which is why I talked a lot about diversity and not just gender diversity.
And I think it's a fair point because to empower women, open up the opportunities for all generations, and we've probably felt a bit of a struggle as we've been going through it. It takes for the mentality of the men, again, to bring us to the table as equals and give us the voice that we should be there for our knowledge, for our expertise, and that is very important. So they have a huge part to play in this, as well as the women that raise the women. It's the men that acknowledge and accept us as the equals as well. That is quite important, and absolutely for the younger generation, the navigating of the challenges that your son must be facing, you're seeing that visibly now. But it must be super powerful for him to have a mother that has been such a strong leader as an example to follow. What more could you give as an example of anybody? He's very lucky.
Well, I think so. If he was here, he may say something different.
They all would about us.
Yes.
Something you said earlier about resilience really resonated with me, because for me resilience is not about necessarily taking that duvet day. It is actually about recognizing where you're at and how you're feeling, but then probably putting your lipstick on and going into the office anyway.
Totally.
And that's how you build resilience, is actually by doing difficult things.
Yes.
And that is a gift that I think we can all bring to the people who work in our teams.
Yes. And to put the metaphorical arm around them when they are, because you can tell when people are struggling, and that comment on that your boss made about crediting you and putting a metaphorical arm around people that you can see are having a tough day or a tough time or stuck at a point in the project. I agree. But, you have to show up.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, ladies. I really appreciate all the different perspectives that we've shared today. I could keep going. I'd love to hear all these stories all day. If we've got another hour, I'd love that. But I will, wrap it up here, and we will wrap it up here for now. To be continued, I'm sure, if I get some time back in. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.